Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about fear and anxiety. Now, fear might seem like a very odd topic for a Christmas Eve service. This is supposed to be about fun and joy and Santa and gifts and family, but I'm struck by how much it comes up in the Christmas story that has been so beautifully read tonight. Mary is told that she's going to have a baby without a father, and the angels tell her not to be afraid. Joseph is told he'll be the father, and the angels tell him not to be afraid. The first visitors to the baby Jesus will be shepherds who are told by the angels, do not be afraid. Repeatedly through the story of Jesus' birth, angels are saying the same thing. Don't be afraid. This angelic warning that we shouldn't be afraid resonates with us as we celebrate Christmas 2021. We live today in a culture that is stoking our fears and leading us to anxieties. Fear, we all know, can serve a good short-term purpose in our life. It can move us away from a threat. But when we live in constant fear, we slip into anxiety that it's not directly related to any one threat. It becomes a way of life. I call this living in the house of fear. It is debilitating and it invites hellish energy. This fear that has morphed into anxiety is ripping through our culture like very few times in the past. The data shows this. Anxiety rates among our young people have literally doubled over the past 10 years. Anxiety itself has become the most common mental disorder in the United States, affecting 40 million adults. And to add to that, COVID has only made things worse. For 2 years, this pandemic has isolated us from important relationships. It's led some people to an early death. It's wreaked havoc on our teachers and our healthcare providers, moving us from fear to anxiety. I'm mindful of this tonight at a personal level, as yesterday I too tested positive for COVID, and I'm isolating as we speak, and I will not be able to celebrate with my family this year, which I've done for many, many decades. Though I have to tell you, I have the mildest form possible of this thing, and I have no fear about it at all. Our political realm is also based in fear and anxiety. We've come to believe that if you voted for the other person in the last election, I don't just disagree, but I fear your agenda and what it will do to me. Social media is harnessing our fears with messages that get our attention. We click on our fears, leading some of us down rabbit holes of conspiracy theories that leave us perpetually anxious. And reports that climate change is altering the world with predictions that much of the world won't be livable in a few decades can also lead us to be paralyzed of what we can do in response. So Christmas is a time when we need to be reminded again of the words of the angels. Fear not. Just as the angels came to Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, the wise men, they are trying to speak to all of us here today. They are seeking to steer our lives away from a fear that leads to anxiety, to a peace that passes all understanding. This Christmas, the angels are seeking to guide each of us who are listening to their message, moving us from fear to joy. They're asking us to recommit to loving God by loving one another and recommitting to each other. I serve on the board of an organization called Citizens University, and it's the leading civil society organization in the country. In fact, it's where I met the famous Annabelle Park at a conference 6 years ago. And it's led by a brilliant and thoughtful leader named Eric Liu. In his closing newsletter for the year, he shared a story that I'd like to share with you because I think it speaks beautifully about not giving in to our fears. He writes, "My mother, Julia Liu, was not a religious person, but in the early 1990s, after my father died suddenly, she encountered a book by Pope John Paul II called Be Not Afraid. She took it to heart, and in a time of desolation, she resolved not to be afraid. Over the ensuing 30 years, she faced reality, rooted herself in community, and began a new life. This new life had its trials, but it was also filled with friendship and joy and curiosity and contribution, not fear. My mother died this last spring, and at the end of this trying year, as I reflect upon the reasons for all of us to be afraid right now, I recall her spirit. To be not afraid does not mean being in denial or numb or nihilistic. It means being willing to recommit to each other, to the possibility that we together can make something better than this. Eric said it beautifully. He's so right. This Christmas, the angels are asking each of us to commit to God and to one another, that we can build something better than this. Angels are introducing us to people who will change our lives for the better. They are steering us away from people who are not good for us. They are helping us take a stand against our addictions that waste time and destroy health. And they start their message to us saying, fear not. They remind us of the good news that when the world was at its worst, God came in human form as a baby in a manger, saying to working class shepherds working in the fields at night, fear not, I bring you good tidings of great joy. And the angels are saying the same to each of us tonight. When the world seems at its worst, we can refuse to live in constant anxiety. Instead, we can embrace God, embrace action, embrace each other, and embrace joy. Remember, fear not, I bring you good tidings of great joy. Merry Christmas.